So, you've managed to get the first season of your brand new animated series completed, and you've gained a following. Great. But now you gotta live up to expectations and improve on what came before. That's what RWBY Volume 2 strived to do. Volume 1 was an okay piece of media, but there was definitely room for improvement. They established a world and presented a threat that looms over that world. They introduced characters with distinct personalities, some more complex than others. A story had been crafted, just waiting to bloom. It was time to expand, build upon what was given. So does Volume 2 deliver on this? Or is it just a repeat of the previous season? Let's find out. We begin exactly where Volume 1 began, the From Dusk Till Dawn dust shop. We cut to the shop owner preparing for its reopening after what happened last volume, only to stumble upon her.
I'm not really from around here.
This is Emerald, one of the two individuals with Mystery Woman at the end of Volume 1. Clearly her nice guy attitude is all an act here. She asks him for directions to another shop in the area, and he points the way. Waiting not too far away is the other individual in cahoots with Mystery Woman. His name is Mercury. He and Emerald get along well.
Ooh, Emerald, Master Thief! Please don't take my money. I barely have enough to get by. You're no fun today.
Yeah, they get along well. They arrive at the shop, called Tuckson's Book Trade.
Home to every book under the sun.
I sense false advertising. They ask the shop owner if they have the books they bring up, and... Okay, we know they're the bad guys here, so let's just cut to the chase.
I hear you're planning on leaving. Your brothers in the White Fang wouldn't be happy to hear that.
Are you guys really gonna slug it out here of all places? Sure, I hate reading, but even I wouldn't mess up a bookstore. Besides, preservation of physical copies of anything is important. Emerald asks him if he's going to retaliate, and he does.
It was at this moment that he knew. He f***ed up.
What's with that?
I like the pictures.
And all it cost was one innocent life. We cut to teams Ruby and Juniper eating lunch in the school cafeteria. Blake looking a bit down, and Nora being Nora. Again, Ruby arrives with a giant binder. What is it for, you ask?
Kicking off the semester with a bang.
I always kick my semesters off with a yang.
Corner, now! Anyway, it's apparently been 2 weeks since the end of Volume 1, so... Hey, wait a minute.
Our second semester is going to be great.
Are you telling me each semester is only 2 weeks? What kind of high school has 2-week semesters? Or has a lot of time just passed during the middle part of Volume 1? If so, it wasn't exactly stated in the show that this was the case. You can't just expect us to know that that amount of time has passed. Regardless, it's their last day before classes start up again, so Ruby wants to do fun things for this last day. Blake insists on setting this one out, but Weiss thinks they should spend however they handle this last free day as a team.
I, for one, think that...
I see what you mean. Fine, I'll go to the corner now. Meanwhile, Sun is outside the cafeteria telling this blue-haired pretty boy essentially a recap of what happened at the end of last volume and plans to introduce him to his new friends from Beacon. They enter the cafeteria and...
I'm Queen of the Castle! I'm Queen of the Castle!
Oh no.
Justice will be swift!
Justice will be painful.
It will be delicious!
And thus we transition to the first fight scene of this volume. And it's a food fight. This fight is standard RWBY fare. So that just means the choreography is on point, with both teams fighting each other using their own fighting techniques, except they attack each other with food, even using food like their normal weapons. This is so dumb. It shouldn't be this epic, but it just is. I love it. I can't show all of it, but if you're able, definitely take the time to watch this. It's great. Team RWBY wins, of course.
I love these guys.
Uh-oh.
Do not play with your food.
Well, that was anticlimactic. Osmond tells Glinda to let it go. They may be defenders of the world in training, but they're still kids at the moment, so they should be allowed to enjoy whatever time they have left being kids. We join back with Emerald and Mercury, who have returned to Torchwick's hideout.
Oh, look, she sent the kids again. This is turning out just like the divorce.
Wait, you were married? Sorry, I haven't been keeping up with the novels because I hate reading. Anyway, he steals the paper Emerald had with the address written on it, deducing where the two have been this whole time. It seems Torchwick was going to take care of Tuckson's, but he's a busy man, so Emerald and Mercury took it upon themselves to do the job Torchwick apparently can't get done himself for him. This ticks Torchwick off. saying that if it were up to him,
I would take you and your little street rat friend here, and I would...
A not-so-tall, dark, and brooding guest has arrived.
hello again, mystery woman. Okay, enough of that. This is Cinder Fall, the true mastermind behind everything Torchwick's been doing, including their workings with the White Fang. It appears the guy Emerald and Mercury eliminated was once a member of the White Fang, and planned to leave Vale for Vacuo, probably to get away from it all. Cinder scolds Emerald and Mercury for making such a commotion in Vale, and then scolds Torchwick for not getting the job done sooner. Yeah, why didn't Torchwick get it done sooner? Well, that's a lot of dust you got there. Cinder orders Torchwick to have the White Fang clear out the warehouse, and he'll be given the location of their next place of interest.
We're proceeding to phase 2.
I place one card face down and end my turn. And with that, Chapter 1 ends. And it's alright. Like the first chapter of last volume, it sets up the threat of our new villains. A bit more effectively this time, I might add, since they actually killed someone. We also get to see that they're on the move. They aren't just sitting around doing nothing. Wow, there's actually a potential plot brewing this time. But that's about the best I can say about this chapter. Well, this and the food fight. The food fight is definitely a spectacle, don't get me wrong, but aside from that, the rest of what we see of our heroes doesn't really contribute much to the story, save for Blake being all moody and a new character appearing. I mean, I guess there's the thing Ospen said, which can kind of be applied to this volume as a whole as sort of the theme of this volume, but then again, I'd say what he said is more of a theme for the whole series rather than just this volume. That's not a bad thing, mind you, but for this first chapter, for how it sets up the rest of the volume, the villains were the ones that shined here. In the next chapter, we get a wide shot of a giant airship landing at Beacon, along with other fighter ships flying by. Ospen and Glinda are watching as more ships begin landing. The Atlesian military and the students of Atlas Academy have arrived. Glinda's not too thrilled about this, seeing as how there are so many ships landing at once. It's a bit excessive. We're introduced to this man, General James Ironwood of the Kingdom of Atlas and the headmaster of Atlas Academy, who...
Loyalty always matters!
Sorry, I'm just a bit allergic to hypocrisy. Anyway, Glinda's absolutely ecstatic that he's here.
I'll be outside.
Well, she hasn't changed a bit.
Can you blame her? You brought an entire military with you to Beacon. Speaking of, as you could probably expect, Ironwood is here for the Vital Festival. Now, I understand bringing the students, but why bring the military as well?
Well, concern is what brought them here.
Remember the end of Volume 1 and the message Ospen got from Crow? Yeah, that's why he brought the military. It's almost like he's scared, fearful of something. Ospen assures him that if what Crow said is true, they'll handle it with great care. After all, it's the Vital Festival, a celebration of peace and unity. Bringing a military is not going to show that. Ironwood leaves, but not before saying this.
Do you honestly believe your children can win a war?
Right back at ya, buddy.
I hope they never have to.
We cut to the library, where Team RWBY is playing some kind of board game using language that I can only describe as Yu-Gi-Oh! RWBY declares her attack, but...
I activate my trap card.
Mirror Force! Weiss has absolutely no idea what's going on.
It's easy. You're playing as Vacuo, which means all
Blah,
Vacuo-based
blah,
cards
blah,
come with a
blah,
bonus.
blah. After that lengthy explanation, Weiss thinks she's going to win.
Trap card.
Huh? Your armies have been destroyed. We'll make it through this together! Shut up! Don't touch me!
She's touching you. Anyway, Sun arrives to properly introduce RWBY, Blake, Yang, and Ice Queen.
Why does everyone keep calling me that?
To Sun's friend Neptune from Haven Academy, which is in the Kingdom of Mistral. Weiss and Neptune clearly begin developing a crush towards one another.
Are you kidding me?
Pleasure to meet you.
Blake decides to leave for the dorm room. Man, she's been very down in the dumps lately, but I can't exactly blame her. Not after what happened at the end of last volume. And as we see, that's all she's been thinking about lately. We cut to a flashback of Ospen questioning her after the incident from last volume. It seems she's one of the few people to pass Beacon's entrance exam without having enrolled in a combat school beforehand.
I was raised outside the kingdoms. If you can't fight, you can't survive.
Ospen applauds her for this, and he says he's glad he runs a school that accepts people from any kind of background. including Faunus. As such, he asks Blake why she wears the bow to hide the fact that she's a Faunus. But Blake responds by saying she wants people to see her for who she is, rather than what she is. Ozpin asks her how she knew the White Fang would be at the shipyard, but Blake says she didn't, that it was just a case of being at the right place at the right time. However, Ozpin says the incident wasn't isolated. He asks if there's really anything else left she has to say. She says she doesn't, and Ozpin lets her go. But I'm pretty sure he knows she knows more than she's letting on. The rest of her team arrives in the dorm.
Stop.
In the name of love! In the name of love!
Lately you've been quiet, antisocial, and moody.
See, this scene really highlights how far Weiss has come in the span of one season, and it shows that she really does care. She reminds Blake of the promise they made the night after the attempted robbery by Torchwick and the White Fang.
So, Lake Belladonna, what is wrong?
How is she... Oh, show off. Anyway, Blake comes out and speaks her mind. She's very concerned about Torchwick and the White Fang, that something big is about to happen and no one is doing anything about it. And Blake knows the White Fang very well, so if she's this concerned, you know it's something that can't be ignored. Before anyone makes any ideas, Weiss interjects with the realization that while the four of them are skilled, they're still students. They're clearly not ready, but Blake says they may never be ready.
They're out there somewhere planning their next move, and none of us know what it is, but it's coming.
So RWBY, being the fearless leader, suggests they be the ones to do something about it, and everyone agrees. But that's gonna need to be put on hold because RWBY forgot her board game in the library. She goes to get it back, but as she leaves...
Are you okay?
I'm fine. Just watch where you're going.
Son of a monkey, they're actually infiltrating the school disguised as students. Specifically students from Haven. That's actually pretty clever. Once again, the villains shine.
And welcome to Beacon!
Let's see how many seconds you last.
In the next chapter, we join the students in another one of Professor Port's classes. Jean pesters Weiss if they can go out together after class. He fails, of course.
One day.
One day indeed. After class, Team RWBY preps up for their investigation on finding out what Torchwick and the White Fang are plotting. The thing to note here is each team member is wearing a new outfit. As the series moves forward, the characters will change into new outfits, but they only change into one singular new outfit at or around the start of a new 3-volume arc. The Beacon arc is the only time where they have more than one outfit for an arc, unless you count the variants of Weiss's design from volumes 4 through 6. But for this volume specifically, they only change into these specific clothes for these few episodes. And I gotta say, it's a nice change of pace. They discuss their plan. RWBY and Weiss will head to the CCT and check the Schnee Dust Company records to see if any other robberies have occurred. Blake will infiltrate the White Fang's regularly scheduled faction meetings to see if anything is up. Yang is going to talk to a friend at a shady part of town who apparently knows everything going on in Vale. And Sun will... Wait, when did Sun get here? Anyway, he wants in on this too. Oh, and he brought Neptune.
Seriously though, can I come in? We're like really high up right now.
It's also cold out here. Sun is paired with Blake, and Neptune is paired with Yang because she's the only one without a partner. Weiss interjects, clearly wanting to go with Neptune.
Nah.
One day indeed. And so, the mission begins. RWBY and Weiss arrive at the transmit tower. The CCT, or Cross-Continental Transmit System, was developed by Atlas to allow the four kingdoms to communicate with each other. Weiss says they could have just made a phone call at the library for this part of the mission, but RWBY wanted to go here because it's, quote, so cool.
Oh, I'm gonna take a picture.
Calm down, RWBY. It's just a simple communications tower. However, they're not the only ones at the CCT.
You dropped this.
Well, if it isn't Penny.
Where have you been? We haven't seen you since the night at the docks.
Oh, so now you care about Penny. But I guess it was kinda weird that Penny just up and left after the Torchwick and White Fang incident.
I think you're confused.
Well, that's one way of returning her scroll. RWBY decides to follow Penny while Weiss takes care of calling the Schnee Dust Company. Sadly, Penny keeps avoiding RWBY until RWBY explains what happened at the docks is probably linked to something much bigger that's likely going to happen soon. Since Penny mysteriously left, RWBY thinks she might know something. Penny agrees to talk elsewhere in private. Meanwhile, Weiss arrives inside the tower and makes her way to the communications room. She manages to contact the Schnee World headquarters and requests for certain files, hopefully ones that'll help in their search.
What may I ask is this for?
School project.
Oh, you know, the school project where we're investigating a criminal who's working with a terrorist group to steal the company's dust. Nothing special, really. The files apparently have sensitive data, but at Weiss's request, the attendant hesitantly downloads them onto her scroll. The attendant asks if she wants the call to be transferred to her father, but Weiss refuses, and they end their call, where we see a worried look on Weiss's face in the reflection of the screen. As this is happening, Ruby and Penny discuss what happened. To the shock of no one, Penny knows absolutely nothing about Torchwick or the White Fang from the docks incident. As for why Penny left so suddenly last volume, it's because her father told her not to wander off too far into the city. But that just begs the question why she wasn't accompanied by a chaperone or, well, himself. She was also asked to not talk to anyone, but not by her father. And as she says this, the two arrive at what appears to be some kind of announcement presentation by General Ironwood. $10 says he's the one that gave the order that Penny is not to talk to anyone. So, the presentation. Ironwood is unveiling a new line of combat robots to aid in defending the kingdom borders. But that's not all.
The Elysian Paladin.
Gee, that doesn't look like something that'll be sabotaged later. But there's no time to process this because the girls have been spotted! And so Ruby and Penny flee from the scene as Atlas soldiers pursue them. They do a pretty good job keeping their distance until... What? How did she... The truck just...
Penny! Please! What is going on? I'm not a real girl.
You mean, she actually was a robot? Yes, it turns out Penny is the very first android created to have the ability to produce an aura. And it's here where we get another moment that cements Ruby as my favorite character in the show. Penny says that she's not real. Ruby's response?
You think just because you've got nuts and bolts instead of squishy guts makes you any less real than me?
Furthermore, Ruby says she can feel that Penny has a heart and soul. Interesting. Penny's a machine, but she has a soul, which would explain how she's able to produce an aura. But how exactly is this possible? Remember this for a future volume. As for the scene itself, it shows even more just how loving a person Ruby is to others, no matter what kind of person they may be. Penny explains that it was her father that built her with some help from General Ironwood, which confirms she's from Atlas, and explains why those soldiers were chasing her. Penny further explains that she was created with the task of one day saving the world, but they don't think she's ready, hence why she's going to compete in the Vital Festival tournament to gain experience. But wait a minute, isn't Remnant in a time of peace? Why would the world need saving?
That's not what Mr. Ironwood said.
Check down here.
To ensure Ruby doesn't get in trouble, Penny puts Ruby inside a nearby dumpster to hide in as she turns herself over to the soldiers. Now it's time to check up on Yang and Neptune. Now, remember when Yang said she has a friend in this part of town? Well, I've yet to bring these up, but Ruby's yellow trailer.
Aren't you a little young to be in this club, Blondie?
Aren't you a little old to have a name like Junior?
Yeah, that's who they're here to see.
Blondie, you're here.
You still owe me a drink.
Wait, how old are you again? Anyway, now we join Blake and Sun infiltrating the White Fang, and it's here we learn that the masks we saw them wear last volume are worn as a symbol.
Humanity wanted to make monsters out of us, so we chose to don the faces of monsters.
And so the meeting begins, with Torchwick making his appearance to the surprise of the new members. Now, as for why Torchwick, a human, is helping the White Fang, it's because they all have a common enemy.
The ones in control, the people pulling the strings, government, military, even the schools. They're all to blame for your lot in life.
You know, when you really think about it, he makes a good point. Sure, there are humans that do indeed treat Faunus as equals, but as long as the higher-ups are in charge, ones who despise Faunus, there won't be any change. That's why groups fighting social injustice in the real world are trying to do just that, to bring about change for the better. This cause isn't exactly a bad thing. It's just a shame the White Fang is shown to us from the get-go as the villains, meaning their cause that's not exactly a bad thing is seen as evil. Now yes, we can't rule out the possibility of a cause like this slowly becoming corrupted. After all, we are all flawed imperfect beings, and just because our cause has good intentions doesn't mean the way we go about it is necessarily good. But that's neither here nor there, so what we get is a not-so-great depiction of a group fighting social injustice. And that's the big problem with how the White Fang is presented in the show. Now, I know what I just said is a simplified explanation on the matter, but that's because I want to go into my own thoughts on the White Fang more in depth at a later time. But trust me, there's a reason people don't like how the White Fang are presented to us. So, how is Torchic planning on dealing with the higher-ups? I told you! Not a bad plan, really, using the power of the ones in control against them. Also, he says this teeny tiny little detail.
Now, many of your brothers have already moved down to our new operation in the southeast.
You done goofed, son. We're back with Yang and Neptune. It turns out Junior here lent his men to Torchwick the night Yang came into the club in the yellow trailer, but none of them came back. So really, this is RWBY's fault since she's the one who beat them up. Back at the White Fang meeting, Blank tries to come up with a plan, but it's too late. Torchwick spotted them, so what do? Blackout.
I've been waiting for this!
And that happened. Blake calls for backup.
Where are you guys?
Does that answer your question? And so begins the fight with Torchwick piloting the Paladin. This fight is crazy intense. It starts on a freeway, Blake and Sun just jumping from car to car, as Torchwick just runs right through all of the other cars, not giving a care about the people inside them. Yang and Neptune arrive, revealing Neptune's sweet lance weapon. But despite their best efforts, Sun and Neptune are tossed off the freeway. I'm sure they'll be fine. Weiss then arrives and is able to get Torchwick off the freeway and away from civilians. He's confronted by RWBY, followed by the rest of Team RWBY assembling. And now we've arrived at the real meat of the fight scene with Torchwick. Team RWBY shows off a lot of coordinated attacks here, and it's absolute eye candy as always. An interesting thing about this fight is all of the coordinated attack names are named after the shipping pairs for each possible pair on the team. Minus, of course, a name for RWBY and Yang because they're siblings. And let's not forget Die, the awesome song that plays during the climax of the fight. The Paladin is strong, but it's clear that just one Paladin stands no chance against the teamwork of a group of well-trained huntresses in training. But just when it seems like they have Torchwick cornered, she appears to crash the party. This is Neapolitan. She's sort of Torchwick's right-hand girl. Again, I haven't read the novel, but it's clear as the series progresses that there's a deep personal connection between the two of them. With Neo's semblance, Torchwick escapes. Well, at least we kinda know what they're up to.
Wait, where are Sun and Neptune?
How many places does this guy work at? Overall, this first arc of the volume is pretty good. This feels like an overarching plot taking shape. Things are actually happening. We see our main team doing something about the villains when no one else seems to be, actually coming up with plans to get to the bottom of it. They really do feel like main protagonists here, and their current progress of the search does bear some fruit. But we also see the villains doing stuff too, from secretly infiltrating the school, to confiscating unreleased military equipment to use in their grand scheme. We also get to see more about Penny and what her deal is, as well as foreshadows of things to come. So, with so much happening in just the first 4 episodes of the volume, surely things only go up from here, right? Well, before we move on, there's this little something that I gotta bring up that happens right after this first arc. The World of Remnant videos. These videos were absolutely necessary, but they were also stupid at the same time. Okay, that might be a little harsh, but hear me out. They were necessary because they gave us more insight on, as the title says, the World of Remnant and key aspects about it, like the kingdoms, huntsmen, what dust is, etc. But they were stupid because of when they released these videos. These days, Rooster Teeth would just tell us if there isn't going to be a new episode that week, whether it be because they need more production time or it's the holidays. But in the early days of RWBY, this is how they tell us a new episode wasn't coming that week. Release a World of Remnant video at the exact time a new episode of the main show would drop. And without warning. They did this for 3 seasons, starting with Volume 2, and it was honestly dreadful each week. You're excited for the next episode of RWBY, only for this to release in its place. I get it, it's a time filler. It's just, they should have been uploaded some other time of the week. I'm not going to go into detail on these videos, so I suggest looking them up on your own time. But there is one video in particular I want to give special attention to, and yes, it's a World of Remnant video that released in Volume 3, but I feel it's relevant here. Remember the CCT that was shown to us in the first arc? Well, there's a video about it, and Ozpin says this.
The concept of relay satellites orbiting around the planet was promising. Unfortunately, modern man has yet to make the technological advancements required to achieve spaceflight, as all known dust types lose their power as they begin to leave Remnant's atmosphere.
Interesting! Keep this in mind for a much later volume. Anyway, on with the show. The next chapter begins with Pyrrha fighting against Team Cardinal. I guess she finally did get the chance to break Cardin's legs. No, actually, this is yet another class for Vital Festival Tournament sparring matches, and Pyrrha manages to defeat Team Cardinal single-handedly. Dang, and you wonder why she's so popular. Glinda says there's time left for one more match. At first, she planned to pick Blake to participate. By the way, Blake's looking a bit tired. Gee, I wonder why. But yeah, maybe that's not such a good idea, Glinda. But it doesn't matter because...
I'll do it.
Glinda agrees, but Mercury wants to fight Pyrrha. Glinda objects since Pyrrha has already fought in a match, but Pyrrha says it's fine. They fight, and it's actually turning out to be a pretty good match. But just as things start to get interesting, Mercury suddenly surrenders. Killjoy. Anyway, with the match over, class has ended. Glinda mentions that there's a dance that weekend, but the students' first mission, whatever that's supposed to mean, is the following Monday. Outside the building, Sun catches up with Blake and asks her out to the dance mentioned earlier. But Blake declines his offer, saying she has no time for a stupid dance.
I thought you, of all people, would get that.
Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm gonna go brood about it. Ouch! Blake, I get the dances are clearly not your thing, but do you have to be that harsh about it? It's pretty clear that Blake is too concerned about and too focused on the investigation with Torchwick and the White Fang. But it's been having a negative effect on herself and her performance in school, which is why her teammates tried to convince her to go to the dance anyway. Blake's response?
You think I care about grades? People's lives are at stake.
Now, to their credit, they did find out some pretty juicy information, most notable being the fact that Torchwick and the White Fang are doing something in the southeast of Vale. After all that work, having a dance as a time to rest up is good for them. That way, they'll be well rested when they resume their search. But sadly, that's not enough to convince Blake, and she retreats for the library, the rest of the team looking distraught. And then...
Why, Shani, will you accompany me to the dance on Sunday?
I mean, at least you've got guts to even ask her. But yeah, she turns him down.
And that is why they call you the Ice Queen.
A bit later, back on the rooftop, Jean is once again training with Pyrrha, and it appears Jean's actually been improving. But just as they're about to practice Aura, Jean elects to skip it. Why? Well, you saw what happened, right? Yeah, he's bummed about Weiss turning him down, to which Pyrrha says,
I believe the saying goes, there's plenty of fish in the sea.
You're not doing a good job at hiding it, Pyrrha. Anyway, Jean says this.
If you don't get a date to the dance, I'll wear a dress.
She's standing right there, man! Ripe for the picking! Meanwhile, our villains are apparently talking about some of the students, and they mention Pyrrha. They say she's good in combat. She doesn't telegraph her semblance, so it puts her opponents off guard. But Mercury says she isn't invincible because of it.
Add her to the list.
Weaklings like him are of no consequence.
In the next chapter, RWBY, Weiss, and Yang are setting up for the dance. Yang asks RWBY if she's picked out a dress yet.
Who cares about the dance if Blake isn't going?
Well, Yang says Blake is going, so it looks like she has a plan to convince her. Sun and Neptune arrive, much to Weiss's excitement. I wonder who she wants to go to the dance with. Sun asks what Blake thinks of all this, since she's still intent on not going.
Trust me, Blake will be at the dance tomorrow.
Well, good luck with that. We cut to Blake still in the library, clearly doing more investigation, until a red light shows up. It's funny cause she's a cat? So Blake follows the red light, only to find Yang at the end of it, who then takes Blake away to go talk. Meanwhile, we cut to Ren, who was about to take, or was taking, a shower, only for Jean to take him away to go talk. I guess people just really need to talk today. So, Jean took Ren to talk. About girls. Still upset about Weiss, are you? But why Ren? Well, since Ren and Nora are so close, Jean figured Ren could give some good advice. Except...
we're not actually together.
Yet? So, Jean gets straight to the point. He likes Weiss. I know, shock. But she rejects him every chance he gets. He wants her to take him seriously and to tell her his feelings without having to mess it up.
Then do it.
What?
How long have you been standing there listening on all of this? So, Pyrrha suggests to Jean that he should do just that. Be honest with Weiss, tell her his feelings. No crazy antics, just the truth. Jean admits she's right.
Thanks, Pyrrha. Good talk, Ren.
But I didn't do anything. Now, if only Pyrrha can do the same.
Practice what you preach, Pyrrha.
Back with Blake and Yang, Blake is still intent on not stopping the investigation. Mind you, Yang doesn't want Blake to stop either, just to slow things down. This leads into Yang telling us a bit of backstory on herself and her family. Yang and Ruby's parents were huntsmen, their father, Tai Yang Xiaolong, a teacher at Signal, and their mother taking on missions all over the world. This woman is Summer Rose, the one whose memorial stone we see in the Red trailer. It seems Summer never returned from one of her missions from back then and was assumed dead, her family completely torn by such a devastating loss, especially Tai, as Summer was, in fact, the second love he had lost. As I told you in the first volume review, Ruby and Yang share the same biological father, but have different biological mothers. Summer Rose is obviously Ruby's mom, and Tai's first love is Yang's mom. In fact, Summer, Tai, Yang's mom, and Crow, Yang and Ruby's uncle, were once a team together. Okay, this is the 4th time that name has been dropped in this show. This guy must be the talk of the town if they keep throwing his name out there. So, if Summer is Tai's second love, what happened to Yang's mom? Well, it turns out she left them after Yang was born. Parent of the year, everybody. Yang wanted to find out where she went, and one day she found a possible clue. On that day, while Tai was away, Yang took Ruby with her and set out to find her missing mom. But when they arrived at a place that could give her some answers, they were attacked by Grimm. All hope seemed lost until, who else but their Uncle Crow appeared to save them. This is excellent backstory for 2 of our main characters. But what does this have to do with Blake? Simple. Just as Blake hasn't stopped investigating Torchwick and the White Fang, Yang hasn't stopped trying to find her mother. In the Yellow trailer, Yang confronts Junior to find a certain woman. It's not told to us, but I'm convinced she was looking for tabs on her mom. But even though Yang hasn't stopped searching, she won't let the search control her, and that's what Blake needs to do with the investigation.
Just please, get some rest.
She then leaves, but not before offering to save Blake a dance at the dance. And here is where most in the fandom would say this is where the Bumblebee ship takes off. Now, I know I jokingly said Yang was pining over the guys in the last volume, but that doesn't necessarily mean she's full on straight. However, in my honest opinion, at this point in the story, Blake and Yang are just close friends and nothing more. For now. I've been watching the show for a while now, and I'll save my thoughts on their later relationship development at a much later time. So, moving on, Jean is on his way to tell Weiss his feelings, looking very confident and even holding a flower in hand. But just as he's about to meet with her, it seems Weiss has made her own move. She's asking Neptune out to the dance. Right then and there, Jean leaves, basically giving up. Man, this episode has been a roller coaster of emotions, hasn't it? And so, it's the night of the dance. Yang is excited about Ruby's dress.
Can we have a serious talk about how Weiss fights in these?
But you fight wearing a skirt. It's the dance. Get used to it. But they aren't the only ones dressed for the occasion. It seems Blake has, at last, decided to take it easy and go to the dance, with Sun as her date. But as Yang promised, she is Blake's first dance. And so, their mission to get Blake to the dance was a success. Blake actually having fun with it. And it's time the others had fun with the dance too.
Does that mean I can change out of these stupid things and into my hood now?
Sorry, Ruby, we know you're not a, quote, fancy-pantsy dancy girl, but...
Well, you can't spend your entire life on the battlefield.
Yeah, why does Ruby long to be on the battlefield? And so we end the episode with a lesson from Ozpin, that moments like these should be cherished, for time with friends can strengthen our bonds with one another. But the dance isn't quite over yet. Just ask them.
You guys are just in time.
Wouldn't miss it for the world.
In the next episode, the dance is in full swing, everyone having an enjoyable time. Even Ironwood is indulging in the festivities. We find Ruby and Jean at the punch bowl away from most people because social awkwardness. Ruby says she's sorry for Jean failing to ask Weiss out to the dance, but Jean's cool with it. But it's here we learn that Weiss came to the dance alone. Wait, what? She was going high over heels for Neptune. What happened? Well, Jean, pissed at learning this, is poised to find out.
Hold my punch.
Because he's gonna give Neptune his own punch. To the face! Well, okay, not really, but we'll see soon enough. As he's walking towards Neptune, Jean finds Pyrrha walking by, alone and proceeding upstairs. Jean chooses to follow her upstairs to a balcony and greet her. Turns out, Pyrrha has also come to the dance alone. And it's here where we get a bit of character insight on Pyrrha. It seems that, while it's clear she never lets fame get the better of her, it's this very same fame that cuts her off from the normal crowd, that she's apparently too good for them to interact with in any meaningful way. And that's why she likes Jean, because Jean didn't know who she was when they met, and thus treated her like a normal person rather than a celebrity. And it's thanks to Jean that she's gained a meaningful friendship with not just him, but many people.
You're the kind of guy I wish I was here with. Someone who just saw me for me.
I love this ship. Before Jean can respond to Pyrrha as she's walking away, Neptune arrives. Convenient. Here, Jean really blows off some steam at Neptune and criticizes him for hitting on a lot of girls without thinking about how they feel. So, why did Neptune turn Weiss down?
Can't dance.
Neptune asks Jean not to tell anybody and even offers to let Jean have Weiss. But Jean, after asking Neptune if he likes Weiss and he says yes, has a better idea.
Then just go talk to her.
Yep, the very same advice Pyrrha gave Jean, and I think Neptune really liked hearing that too. And so he goes to talk to Weiss. Wow, what a wonderful evening this has been. What could possibly make this night any better?
Jean?
A promise is a promise.
You people are laughing now, but wait till you see his sick dance moves! Seriously, like with the fight scenes, this dance number is fantastic. Just what I'd expect from Monty. Anywho, with everyone distracted at the dance, the villains commence with their plans. Only one problem. RWBY decides to step outside for a bit and suddenly sees a mysterious figure running on some rooftops. Suspicious of what she just saw, she leaves the dance and pursues. Cinder's target, the CCT. She infiltrates, with ease, and beats the crap out of security. Also, her mask is not on, despite the fact that it's supposed to be. RWBY animation errors.
It was at this moment that he knew.
RWBY arrives at the CCT. Noticing the guard is incapacitated, she calls for her weapon. Yes, that is how they get their weapons sometimes. Anyway, she enters the CCT. Cinder arrives at the communications room and accesses the front desk computer. She's informed by the others that Ironwood has left the dance, but it's fine because she's uploaded what is clearly a computer virus to the main desk computer and infects the rest. But as she's about to leave, RWBY arrives, and Cinder confronts her. RWBY surprisingly holds her own despite her formal wear, and then the general arrives, much to RWBY's fortune. But when she turns back, Cinder's gone, having arrived at the dance and has slipped away past the soldiers that were pursuing her. And so the second arc of the volume comes to a close. For just 3 episodes, we get a lot of character bits for several characters. This is good. As I said, we need to balance out the character bits so that everyone can shine. And I think these 3 episodes did a fine job. Blake letting the investigation control her, Yang sharing hers and her family's backstory, Jean's struggle to win Weiss over, Pyrrha putting on a strong face while still saddened that Jean won't notice her, Neptune gaining the courage to just talk to Weiss. Heck, RWBY going after Cinder was a very main protagonist thing to do. It's good stuff. However, the downside of this arc is, with this arc essentially being a filler arc, the main plot of the volume doesn't exactly get much progression until the very end. Yeah, we still see Cinder's group plotting their scheme, but we don't learn what exactly they're doing until the very end when Cinder infiltrates the CCT. And even that's a little vague. It's good, but the flaws are there. It's the day after the incident at the CCT, and Osmond, Glinda, and Ironwood are discussing what to do, with Ironwood saying they were here. Speaking of Ironwood, he is very upset about this and wants to do something about it immediately, only for RWBY to arrive by Osmond's request. I'm actually surprised they didn't suspect RWBY as the culprit of last night's attack, but then again, the soldiers who were unconscious saw the person and would have pointed out that it definitely wasn't RWBY. Also, there were probably security cameras all over the place, which begs the question why Cinder would have infiltrated the CCT anyway, but I'm probably looking too deep into this. Regardless, Ironwood praises RWBY for her actions last night, saying that what she did is exactly what a huntress is all about.
You recognized a threat, you took action, and you did the very best you could.
I'm gonna hold you to those words, son. Osmond and Glinda ask RWBY if she knows anything else about what happened, but all she remembers is the culprit was wearing a mask, she never spoke to her clothes lit up when she attacked, and she used glass to attack. But notes it probably wasn't her semblance. All but the glass clue leads Glinda to think it was the one she fought in the very first episode of RWBY. RWBY asks if the culprit is connected to Torchwick and the White Fang. Ozpin says it's possible, but there's not enough info to come to that conclusion. RWBY then remembers the culprit saying something about a hideout in the southeast. Ozpin is curious, almost like he's on to what she's been doing.
I thought you said the intruder never—
Thank you for your cooperation, RWBY.
RWBY returns to the dorms, and Ironwood suggests sending a bunch of troops to the southeast to deal with what's going on there. Glinda is pissed at this, as apparently Ironwood's solution to most situations like this is to brute force it with military might. And though he would like to deal with the situation as quickly as possible, Ozpin sides with Glinda. The situation could be bigger than they expect. They don't know the true motives of the villains, and any hasty action could be costly and cause panic.
But if you mean to tell me that your plan is to merely hold the defenses—
It is not. When you prepare to go to war, which do you send in first? The flag bearer or the scouts?
You gotta admit, he has a point. Better to save the full artillery for the opportune moment, lest we lose it all if the enemy has something big and unexpected up their sleeve. Back at the dorm room, the others are informed of what RWBY told the grown-ups about the southeast. A risky move, seeing as they know so much more than Ozpin. But it kinda had to be done if they are to further their investigation. On a brighter note, the team got mail from Ty, Ruby and Yang's dad. RWBY, take it easy, it's just mail. What could Ty have possibly sent you guys in the— What is this dog made of that he can just fit so snugly in a mail package? This is why, Ruby and Yang's pet dog. Weiss responds with her expected sophisticated reaction.
Are you telling me that this mangy, drooling mutt is going to live with us forever?
What made you like this?
Please keep it away from my belongings.
It's funny because she's a cat. Anyway, Glinda calls all first-year students to report to the amphitheater, and they leave. Wait, you're just gonna leave this doggo alone while you're off doing who knows what for a week? But RWBY suddenly has an idea. She's gonna take Zwei with her, isn't she? So, as RWBY arrives at the amphitheater with her giant backpack, it's time for yet another thought-provoking Ozpin speech.
Today we stand together, united, the four kingdoms of Remnant. On this day, nearly 80 years ago, the largest war in recorded history came to an end. It was a war of ignorance, of greed, and of oppression. A war that was about much more than where borders fell or who traded with whom, but about the very idea of individualism itself. We fought for countless reasons, one of which being the destruction of all forms of art and self-expression. And as you are well aware, that was something many could not stand for. As a result, those who opposed this tyranny began naming their children after one of the core aspects of art itself, color. It was their way to demonstrate that not only would they refuse to tolerate this oppression, but neither would the generations to come. We encourage individuality, expressionism, and unity through diversity. Today we stand together, united.
Now, if only we could apply these inspiring words to the real world. Team RWBY looks for a mission taking place in the southeast. They find one, but it's unavailable for first years.
Any other ideas?
We mail ourselves there.
Now you too can order your very own team of huntresses in training for all your Grimm exterminating needs. Sadly, Ozpin points out that the Grimm there appeared too much for first years to handle. Ozpin is even convinced that Team RWBY will find their way to the southeast one way or the other, but I guess he'll never know. But he makes them an offer.
Instead of waiting for you all to break the rules, why don't we just bend them?
You sly dog, you're picking favorites here! But he does warn them that this mission is dangerous, and that they'll need to be at their best, lest the huntsman leading them finds their skills not up to snuff and sends them right back to Beacon. So, no pressure. As they head out to leave the school, it seems Team Coffee has returned from their mission that should have ended a week ago. But Velvet, remember her, says there were too many of them. Too many of what? Grimm? Zombies? Alpha Pokemon? Alpha Zombie Grimm? Either way, it just paints the picture of exactly how difficult the work of a huntsman and huntress is. But RWBY reassures her team that they've persevered this far and they can do it here too. And they have a professional huntsman to guide them. So, they're assigned huntsmen.
Who's ready to fight for their lives?
Yep, it's Mr. High on Caffeine himself, Professor Oobleck.
It's Dr. Oobleck.
Yeah, the girls aren't exactly thrilled about this. Team Juniper catches up with them, asking where they're headed to. It seems they are also traveling outside the kingdom, shadowing a sheriff of a village somewhere at the request of Nora and Rin, which may or may not be important for a later volume, but that's neither here nor there at the moment. Sun and Neptune also show up, saying they're shadowing a crime specialist.
All inner city detective stuff?
We get junior badges.
Too bad they let it go to their heads. Oobleck is losing his patience, and so they all part ways. As they're traveling to their destination, Oobleck notes that the southeast is home to wild forests and deep caves. But that's not all.
It is also the location to one of the kingdom's greatest failures.
That failure is known as Mountain Glen, which was once an expansion of Vale until it got a bad case of Grimm and was abandoned, making it the perfect place for a certain renowned criminal and a terrorist organization to set up shop. They arrive at their destination, and it's the abandoned buildings district of a Power Rangers show. Can you tell who inspired me to do these reviews?
RWBY! I thought I told you to leave all your bags back at school.
Well, you see, Dr. Oobleck, I have a condition. I have to, at certain times, always carry—
Young lady, what in the world could you possibly have in that bag that could be so important to bring it with—
I told you, I have a condition. That's why—
Genius! Canines are historically known for their perceptive nose and heightened sense of sound, making them excellent companions for hunts such as ours.
Wow, we took that pretty well. Good work, RWBY.
Oh my god, I'm a genius!
Sadly, before Oobleck can give his intended orders, a Grimm appears. The girls ready their weapons, but Oobleck objects, saying they should track this specific Grimm to its pack, which, thanks to Grimm being attracted to negativity, can possibly lead them to where Torchwick and the White Fang supposedly are. But that could take forever.
Why, Lone Grin have been known to stay isolated from the pack for months, and there's the whole pack.
Oh, and they've been spotted, too. Fight scene time! It's brief, but I like the comic book Samurai Jack style they go with for the edits here. So, as they continue their search, as well as exterminating any Grimm along the way, Oobleck takes the opportunity to interrogate the team, specifically Yang, Weiss, and Blake in that order. He asks them why they chose to pursue becoming huntresses. Yang wants the thrill of adventure, seeing new places around the world, and helping people along the way just makes it better. Weiss wishes to retain the legacy of her family name, and when she learned she could fight, she knew that's how she would do it. Blake says the world is filled with too much wrongdoing, and someone needs to do something about it, so why not herself? As for how she'll do it, well, she doesn't give an answer. With nightfall approaching, Oobleck has Weiss, Blake, and Yang set up camp while he takes RWBY to secure the perimeter. He's probably gonna go interrogate her too. Well, actually, no, but that's jumping ahead a little. In the process of securing the perimeter, they find a huge pack of Grimm outside the ruined city, marching towards something. Here, Oobleck explains that not all Grimm are mindless creatures. Some have been around for centuries, and in that time, they've learned from their experiences. As such, they're waiting outside the city, almost like they're planning something.
What that goal is, we do not know.
Back to the interrogation. In a twist, RWBY asks Oobleck why he chose to be a huntsman, to which he tells her to look at their current surroundings, full of nothing but ruin.
I see lives that could have been saved.
Though he's capable of fighting like any other huntsman, he chose to seek knowledge that he can pass down to others so that they don't repeat the mistakes of the past and create another Mountain Glen.
I am a huntsman, RWBY, because there is nothing else in this world I would rather be.
Perhaps this is why he didn't interrogate RWBY, because she actually asked the big question rather than the teacher ask her. And it looks like the other three themselves begin to questioning the ideals they said to Oobleck. He and RWBY return, Oobleck telling them to rest up for the night while one of them keeps watch. RWBY volunteers. Yang asks RWBY if Oobleck questioned her why she wants to be a huntress, and RWBY says he didn't and proceeds to begin the watch. With a day of finding nothing and with nothing else left to do, the other three eat their dinners and rest.
Don't worry.
Things will be better tomorrow.
Are you sure about that? At the same time, Ironwood is awake, looking out at the city from Beacon's landing dock. Glinda arrives and notices Ironwood is not at ease.
I can't help but feel like he's keeping us in the dark.
I mean, there are a lot of things in this show that seem like we're being kept in the dark about. But yeah, I can't blame him for asking such a question. After all, as Ironwood says, it is strange how Ozpin is acting so passively toward the current situation.
You've always done what you think is best for the people.
Oh, wait till we get to a later volume. Meanwhile, back at the Southeast, RWBY is continuing keeping watch while the others sleep, but it turns out they all can't. They begin to think about what Oobleck asked them, leading to a really good character development moment for all three of them. Weiss explains the true why to her wanting to become a huntress. Remember what Blake said about the Schnee Dust Company in Volume 1 when they all met? Yeah. Weiss's father is the one responsible for the company's shady business practices, and Weiss is fully aware of this, which is why she's going to do something about it and make things right by becoming a huntress. This would explain why she didn't want to speak to her father back at the CCT. Blake also speaks out, mentioning she used to have a partner in the White Fang named Adam, the guy we see in the Black trailer and the drawing in her notebook at the start of this volume. Back then, Adam told Blake that what they were doing was going towards making a better world, until she learned that that world, Adam's world, was not. So she sought to achieve a true better world by becoming someone always fighting for the greater good, a huntress. But she questions how she can undo all the hate when she finally graduates, because all her life, all she could do was run away. And then there's Yang, who's always just gone with the flow with no drive whatsoever, only wanting the thrill of adventure with unpredictability and not so much wanting to be a hero. This is very much unlike her sister RWBY, who always wanted to be the selfless fairy tale hero. It's this drive that got RWBY where she is today, despite being 2 years younger than her teammates. In the end, the three realize this is what they signed up for. Their desires come after protecting the peace. It's a little after. Yang is now keeping watch while RWBY gets to finally rest. That is until Swine notices something and leaves, forcing RWBY to go after him. And he just needed to pee. I guess when you gotta go, you gotta go. But then RWBY hears someone, and she manages to find 2 lone White Fang troops, thinking they heard a Beowulf. It was Wise barking, by the way. RWBY decides to follow. I would say she should have notified her teammates and Oobleck that the White Fang are here, but then again, if she doesn't follow them, she misses the chance to find out where they are actually hiding. She finds their location and immediately goes to call the others, but it appears the scroll has a bad signal. Darn you, fail in your crappy phone service! So she decides to walk it back, but she catches Zwei and sends him up to safety, but she falls completely, leaving Zwei and her weapon behind. She lands and finds the ruins of an underground portion of the city, but there's no time to sightsee because RWBY's been spotted.
You're a long way from home, little girl.
RWBY, you have a semblance proficient in speed. You can just speed through that door behind them and escape. But no, she gets captured. We join with the others, and Yang notices RWBY is gone and wakes up everyone. Zwei arrives too, leading Oobleck to believe RWBY is in trouble and tells them to get their weapons. Back with RWBY, she regains consciousness and sees the White Fang with paladins and what appears to be a bomb. The grunts present RWBY to Torchwick.
Is it good or bad, Perry? Because, let me tell you, I have had a day.
These hats don't polish themselves. Also, where's my dry cleaning? It's been 6 episodes since those meddling kids got it filthy.
It's a little girl? That would be bad.
Zwei leads them to where RWBY fell, her weapon's still there. They find the hole, leading to this.
Mountain Glen! Yes! An expansion of Vale that was inevitably destroyed by creatures of Grimm, previously home to thousands of people.
Okay, summarizing time. There's an underground subway system leading from Mountain Glen to Vale. When Mountain Glen was destroyed, the citizens retreated to the underground subway and built an underground city, as you saw earlier. But then an explosion underground opened up a cave full of Grimm, forcing the kingdom to seal off the subway tunnels to prevent the Grimm from entering the city, thus leaving all those Mountain Glen survivors living underground to die. So Oobleck comes to this conclusion. If RWBY is down there, and she is,
we must find her.
Meanwhile, with RWBY captured, Torchwick asks how she found them. RWBY tries to escape, but Torchwick manages to reel her back in. And then an explosion happens.
What is going on here?
The cavalry has arrived! This time RWBY does escape, but...
Attach this car and spread the word. We're starting to train.
RWBY meets up with the others, telling them that Torchwick and the White Fang have all the train cars loaded with paladins and other weapons. But Oobleck says there's nowhere for them to go since, as stated earlier, it's all sealed off, so they won't be getting very far. That doesn't stop them from starting the train. RWBY tries to call for backup from Team Juniper, but once again, Vale's crappy phone service gets in the way. With no other options, it seems they are the ones that have to stop the train. They get on board, but the enemy still finds out. They make for the front of the train, but Weiss points this out. As if the situation couldn't get any worse, White Fang members are approaching them, and as if things couldn't get any more worse, the bomb activates. They hop off to the next car, Oobleck telling Blake to sever the train car with the bomb from the rest of the train, but then the train car detaches by itself.
That's not good.
What's also not good is there's another bomb. Oobleck rushes to another car and opens the hatch.
They all have bombs!
The next train car detaches, and the White Fang are approaching closer.
Get the human!
What kind of sound was that? Anyway, they make quick work of the White Fang. Oobleck looks over to the detached train car and watches it explode, creating an opening from outside the tunnel, and Grimm begin to come through the opening and start charging toward the train. Torchwick's plan is made clear.
He's leading Grimm to the city!
Oobleck orders Weiss, Blake, and Yang to go into the cars and stop the bombs, while he and RWBY try to stop the train. More White Fang members enter Paladin units and proceed to stop our heroes. Oobleck takes a drink of his coffee, leading to this. What is Zwei made of to resist being on fire and not burning up? You know what? Doesn't matter. That was awesome! But another paladin arrives.
Okay, but this is just divine. Exquisite.
Seriously, Oobleck's weapon is one of my favorites. It's a thermos that turns into a flamethrower. How can you not love it? The others make their way into the cars, Weiss giving Blake a set of dust mags for her weapon. But they are confronted by Neo. Since they're on a race against the clock, Yang elects to stay behind to face her, while the others go on ahead. They fight, but it's clear Neo is simply more skilled in combat than Yang here. As Weiss and Blake race to the front of the car, this random burly dude with a chainsaw appears. Weiss chooses to stay and fight him, while Blake goes on ahead.
Finally, I get to kill a Schnee.
We'll get back to this fight. Blake arrives and confronts Torchwick. They begin to fight, Blake making good use of the dust mags that Weiss gave her and mops the floor with him. So how are the others faring? So, this fight. I remember reading a post way back in the day on the Chaos Theater forums about this episode, saying this fight in particular is stupid. Weiss is clearly using pure skill in this fight, while this guy just uses brute force. She clearly has the advantage, until he gains the upper hand. All because of one lucky opening that should not have happened. And I get it, she's still in training, and this isn't something that's supposed to be easy to accomplish. But this is Weiss Schnee we're talking about, someone who has proven herself to be a fantastic fighter, and this fight shows that until the lucky opening. So what you're telling me is some rando using brute force and no skill at all is better than Weiss? Especially after the beating she just gave him? She's clearly the superior fighter here. But no, it just comes off as pure skill not really mattering in the long run for a huntress in a situation like this. But enough about this fight. Let's see how Yang's doing. Yeah, she's still being tossed around. Back to Blake.
Do you really think a little bow on top is gonna make people forget what you were? What you've done?
I mean, at least she's doing something about it. And Weiss and Random Guy join in.
So what's it gonna be, Blake?
Okay, first off, you sound like you know her personally. Second, how about in the face? Back with Yang, just as Neo is about to deal the final blow. Another mystery woman, equipped with a really cool scabbard and Jetstream Sam's blade. You know what that means? She's super tough. And I think Neo realizes that, cause she just up and leaves. How many times are people gonna up and leave in this show? I was kidding! But cool ability you got there. Yang regains consciousness, only getting a faint glimpse of the mystery woman before heading over to her friends. Meanwhile, RWBY and Oobleck continue dealing with things outside. Oobleck tells RWBY to go on ahead as he deals with the remaining paladins, RWBY even letting Zwei stay to help him out. As she heads toward the front car, she's reunited with her teammates. Okay, but what happened to Rando Guy? You can't just tell me they beat him off screen. Well, the train is about to crash into the sealed gate, so what does Team RWBY do? Have Weiss encase them in an ice shield. I mean, it worked. They didn't seem to be badly injured. Only one problem. Girls, you've got work to do. And so we arrive at the final chapter of the volume. We find Jean asleep at night when his scroll goes off. It's RWBY, but the call abruptly ends. The next day, Team Juniper is about to head out for their mission. Jean has a bad feeling about getting that phone call. And then the sirens go off, clearly from the train crash where Team RWBY is. Upon hearing the sirens, Jean decides that Team Juniper is changing plans to go help out with what's unfolding in the city. As they board the airship, Jean says this to Ren.
Ren, we'll make it out to that village another time.
Again, remember this for a later volume. As the ship heads out, Cinder, Emerald, and Mercury appear, hearing the sirens. It's clear to them that it's Torchwick enacting their plan, but Emerald says this wasn't supposed to happen for another few days. Back on the ground in the city, our heroines find themselves surrounded by Grimm, leading to yet another awesome fight scene. In the middle of all this chaos, Team Juniper arrives to lend a hand. Jean is confronted by an Ursa. Well hey, now you can slay one by yourself, seeing as Pyrrha's occupied at the moment. Okay, Jean, I think you got him. To Pyrrha's delight. Oh, and Sun and Neptune are here.
Nobody move! Junior detectives! We have badges, so you know it's official.
Great, but that's nothing compared to an actual military. Yes, the Elysian military has arrived, deploying the new robot soldiers seen earlier. Cinder and her team arrive to fight the Grimm, blending in to hide their true motives. Also, Zwei made it out, and we even get to see Oobleck and Port get some of the action. But now it's time for the main event. Give it up for Team Coffee! Hyped up as the best team at Beacon, Team Coffee absolutely destroys the remaining Grimm in another spectacular show of fight scenery. My favorite parts have to be Coco beating up Grimm with just her little suitcase, which we soon learn is made of metal because it's her actual weapon. She tells Velvet to hold off on using her weapon, don't worry, we'll see later, as Coco's weapon transforms into a Sasha. And all of this happening to the sounds of Caffeine, the only song featured in Volume 2 to feature Jeff Williams as the primary lead vocalist. He didn't really feature all that much in this volume's OST, unlike the previous and the next volumes. Glinda arrives on the scene and seals the underground tunnels once more, and with Torchwick captured, the day is saved. We join Team RWBY sitting at the airship docks thinking back on their mission. They may have been victorious, but RWBY points out that they still never found out why Torchwick and the White Fang even did all of this, or who the mystery woman at the CCT was. But at the very least, Torchwick was arrested, which is definitely a big accomplishment. Weiss suggests now they should train for the tournament, but after what just happened, she thinks they're good. Back in the headmaster's office, Ozpin is in the middle of a call with the Vale Council and General Ironwood. After the events that transpired, the tournament can't be held unless strict security is enacted. Thus, the councils of Vale and Atlas have agreed to appoint General Ironwood as the head of security for the tournament.
Our kingdom is happy to lend as many troops as it takes to ensure that this event runs as smoothly and safely as possible.
You know what that means. Something really bad is clearly gonna happen. The council is doubtful about Ozpin's position as Beacon's headmaster and plans to discuss this with him once the tournament is over. On the Atlas airship, Ironwood has a little chat with the now confined Roman Torchwick, asking him the big question: who is truly behind what happened? Torchwick answers,
"Isn't it obvious? You're looking at him."
Of course, the general, not being an idiot. Did I actually just say that? Anyway, he doesn't fall for Torchwick's answer and leaves, saying that, with him in his custody, they have all the time in the world to talk more about it. Back with the villains, Cinder says what occurred today was a success. But Mercury now questions if the White Fang will still listen to them, what with the number of White Fang members not surviving the incident.
No, but they'll listen to me.
And then the credits roll, but if you can probably guess, there's more afterwards. We've got a scene of Yang outside the school walking to other mystery woman who saved her on the train. She removes her helmet, revealing her face. And she kinda looks like Yang.
We have a lot to talk about.
Volume 2 is a definite step up from the first volume, but like with the first volume, it has its flaws. Though I do think those flaws aren't as, should I say, pronounced as in Volume 1. I think the best thing this volume improved upon was actually mostly sticking to a singular overarching plot. It has a beginning, middle, and end, the plot actually moves along, stuff actually happens, and I think it built itself to be rather well for what it was. But notice I said mostly sticking to a singular overarching plot. The volume's plot starts very strong with the first 4 chapters, but once those 4 episodes end, we jump to what is essentially a filler arc with the dance. Yes, stuff involving the main plot happens within this arc, but it feels like such a drastic deviation. But thankfully, the show jumps back into the main plot once it's over, and I thought it wrapped up rather well. But let's go back to the filler arc. See, here's the thing. I don't find it to be terrible. It really helped develop numerous characters in some way. Mind you, Blake and John once again got most of it, but it was much more balanced than last volume. And at least with Blake, her development is kinda related to the plot. But again, it's a drastic deviation. Yes, it only lasted 3 episodes, but not much of the main plot in this part of the volume really moves all that forward. Another criticism that can be drawn is, while I did like how the first arc went, I'll admit that the investigation might have gone a bit too fast. Yes, the plot moves along, and that's good, but stuff gets accomplished rather quickly, and the ending kind of felt abrupt. We also do focus a bit more on Ruby and Penny's part of the arc than the other members. This may sound weird, but I feel like it might have helped a little if this arc was a bit longer. It really could have lasted a few more episodes to help balance each character's portion of the plot, especially since the last arc of the volume lasted 5 episodes, and I felt it was much more balanced with character focus, and the plot was paced rather okay. Yeah, Torchwick immediately enacting his plan might seem like the plot is moving too quickly again, but it's not like he had much of a choice since, well, he was found out. And of course, it has its fair share of animation errors, though not as obvious like last volume, the part with Cinder's mask being the only error that sticks out. That's all of my criticisms, so let's talk about what I liked about the volume. I already mentioned that I liked the improvements to plot focusing, and this only goes up from here in the next volume. So let's move on to other things I liked. The fight scenes are still an A+ performance. From the food fight at the beginning, to the fight with Torchwick, the final fight scenes in the final arc, they were all well made and beautiful to watch, and the music once again complements those fights. Another improvement seen in this volume are the character models. Gone are the shadow people, and in their place are believable looking generic background characters. When I saw this for the first time, I was actually surprised at the complexity of the designs of these generic background characters. It was a welcome addition that breathed life into the show's world. And speaking of the show's world, the world building of Vale in Volume 2 was excellent. Yeah, Volume 1 helped out in this aspect too, but Volume 2 furthered it with new locations that helped make Vale a bustling kingdom. A lack of world building is a criticism that RWBY gets a lot of flack for, but that's primarily Volumes 4 through 6, which we'll talk about at a later time. But yeah, I think people forget just how cool of a location Rooster Teeth made Vale into. As for the character focus, this was also a vast improvement. While some characters didn't receive that much focus, like Nora and Rin, the majority of the characters got to shine at least somewhat. Team RWBY in particular, and rightfully so, because they are the main heroines of the show. RWBY felt like the main protagonist of the show in this volume, doing main protagonist things, especially with her confronting Cinder at the CCT. Weiss has definitely grown from her insufferable pompous nature from last volume, and we finally learn her true motives and that she really wants to bring change to her family's name and their dust company. We finally hear an origin story of sorts about Ruby and Yang, and how Yang is still trying to find her mother, but also what she wants to do with her life. And then there's Blake. It's clear she wants to stop the White Fang and Torchwick before innocent lives are threatened. Her heart is in the right place, but as we see, she lets the investigation control her, and she stubbornly refuses to stop. But as we learn in the final arc of the volume, she has always run from her problems, but not anymore. Unfortunately, focusing so hard on the investigation had a negative effect on her. Yang's talk with her was what she needed to hear, and it helped her in the long run. Now let's talk about Jean and Pyrrha. Jean's whole shtick for this season is to try to hook up with Weiss in outrageously pushy ways, and that fails. But once Pyrrha encouraged him to tell Weiss the truth about his feelings with no shenanigans, his insight on the matter changed. And even though he still failed, he used what he learned to help Neptune, the one he was going up against to win Weiss's affections, to do the same. Go tell Weiss the truth about his feelings to her, no shenanigans, and it paid off. And then there's Pyrrha. It's pretty clear that she has the hots for Jean, but the pressure of being a celebrity kept him from telling Jean the truth. How ironic. But then the opportunity arrived, and she did tell Jean the truth. Maybe not explicitly saying she likes him, but it was enough of a clue to lead him on, as we'll see next volume. And now, the villains. While I liked that we saw a bit more of the White Fang's inner workings, they still were just treated as regular villain grunts, something I'll discuss when we talk about the White Fang as a whole at a later time. As for our main villains, as a whole I thought they were handled pretty fine. Yeah, Cinder, Emerald, and Mercury didn't get major character focus, but they still did their jobs as villains. The three were working in the shadows, operating their missions in secret to accomplish their motives. And for the most part, they succeed. Mind you, RWBY did try to put a dent in those plans, but it wasn't enough to stop them. And all of this done without anyone suspecting it was them. They really did come off as a genuine threat. Torchwick, on the other hand, seemed to operate independently from Cinder's group. This worked in Cinder's group's favor to, again, ensure no one suspects them of the bigger devious plot at work. For Torchwick's character, we don't really learn anything about him other than Neo works for him, but his speech at the White Fang's faction meeting was thought-provoking. But he did tend to rush things when it didn't go his way, and it ultimately got him caught. But as a criminal mastermind with allies on his side, his capture most likely won't last, nor does it stop the villain's master plan, whatever that is, since it's still pretty vague what their true intentions are. But I guess that's why they're the villains. They won't make it easy for the heroes, will they? Overall, Volume 2 does feel disjointed, but not to the level of the first volume. It had a story to tell, and it told it completely, at least for what they wanted the season to tell. The characters were vastly improved from before, and many characters and groups got to shine. And though the animation is still wonky at times, it's clear they've learned from Volume 1's missteps. I find this volume to be one of the better ones out there, and it got me pumped for more. But just what does Rooster Teeth have in store for us next? Well, we'll just have to find out in Volume 3. I'm Chaos Key, and I'll see you all next time.